Welcome to the Child and Adult Care Food Program, or CACFP training, for multi-site sponsors. This training is for school district sponsors with after-school at-risk sites. For school districts with child care sites, please watch the multi-site sponsors training for non-school district sponsors and school districts with child care. In this session, we will go over what is considered a multi-site sponsor, the additional requirements for multi-site sponsors, the role of the site's monitor, and using the site monitoring form, including how to review supporting documents. Let's start with some definitions. A site is a place that has its own physical address and administers reimbursable meals for CACFP. Therefore, a multi-site sponsor is a child nutrition program sponsor that has more than one CACFP approved site. Sites can be either affiliated or unaffiliated. An unaffiliated site is a site that is owned in whole or in part by a CACFP sponsoring organization, meaning that it is a legal entity of the sponsor, while an unaffiliated site is a site that is legally distinct from its sponsoring organization. As a multi-site sponsor, there will be additional requirements beyond the ones that single-site sponsors have. Here are some of the requirements. It includes submitting a revised management plan to reflect the changes in your program. Sponsors will also need to add sites on CNP Web. Pre-approvals of new sites are not required for sites located within school buildings. However, sites located in non-school buildings or locations must have a pre-approval. Finally, multi-site sponsors will need to develop a schedule and implement site monitoring for each site. This training will focus on site monitoring, which makes up a large part of the additional requirements for multi-site sponsors. Having a trained site monitor will be very important since they will be the ones that make sure your participants are receiving the benefits of the CACFP and that your program is in compliance with meal requirements. Meal requirements include ensuring that required components are offered for the CACFP or NSLP meal pattern. Creditable foods are served in adequate serving sizes, meals are consistent with menus, valid medical statements are on file, and the correct meal service style is used. The role can be difficult since the site monitor will need to maintain a balance between being a trainer and a compliance officer while representing your sponsoring organization. Note that the site monitor cannot be a staff member at the site they are monitoring, and they must be an employee of the sponsor because CACFP management may not be contracted out to another entity. For school district sponsors of after-school at-risk sites, site monitoring reviews can follow NSLP monitoring requirements. Monitoring is required to be conducted 2 times a year at all sites, with the first review completed within the first 4 weeks of operation. A second review must be completed before the end of the program. Additional follow-up site monitoring reviews may be needed if problems are noted during reviews. Site monitors should observe a meal or snack during each site review. For best practice, all reviews should be unannounced, meaning that the site staff are not forewarned of the review. This is the NSLP site monitoring form. This form can be found on ODE-CNP's website. Sponsors must use this site monitoring form since it contains all the required components of an NSLP site monitoring review. If site monitors see a problem at a site, the problem must be documented on the site monitoring form, and technical assistance must be provided to site staff on the spot or with follow-up training and potentially a follow-up review. The purpose of the site reviews is to identify, retrain, and resolve problems at each site. Parts of the form can be completed by the site monitor prior to going on site. You will want to focus on problems that were present during the last monitoring review and make sure those problems have been corrected during the current review. The site monitor will review menus, meal counts, and attendance records. Site monitors should check if there are any claim reconciliation issues between meals claimed and available records. Before going on site, it is important to check CNP Web to make sure that the meal times listed on CNP Web are accurate. If there are any discrepancies that arise, make notes on technical assistance or training that you will need to provide. Once the site monitor is on site, check any documentation that were not able to be reviewed off-site. Observe the entire meal service and check that the meal matches the written menu and that the meal service is correctly implemented. Records that are kept on site should be reviewed at this time, and if the site had problems previously, the monitor should check to make sure that all problems have been resolved. Let's take a look at a sample completed site monitoring form. In this example, the site monitor is visiting Riverbend Elementary. Note that 2 site reviews must be completed, and the first review must be done within the first 4 weeks the site is in operation. For sponsors with many at-risk after-school sites, it would be helpful to fill out the forms at the beginning of the school year with the sponsor name, agreement number, site name, address, dates of operation, and contact person. Using the forms, the sponsor can schedule site reviews for the year and keep track of monitoring schedules. During the first review, the site monitor found that the meals were counted at the point of service, but meals were being counted that did not meet the meal component requirements. In this case, you could see on the comments at the bottom that meals were counted even when fluid milk was not served to the participant. In addition, attendance records were not being kept for the first week. The site monitor should stay for the entire meal and note any issues that were observed as well as any technical assistance or training that was provided. Address all problems either on-site or follow up at a later date. In this case, the site monitor should provide the site staff on attendance and meal requirements and let them know that meals served without all components cannot be claimed for reimbursement. Prior to going on-site for the second review, the site monitor should go over the first review and see what problems were observed. The site monitor should pay more attention to the meal counts to make sure that only complete meals are counted and attendance records are complete. In this example, the site monitor praised the site staff for correcting their errors from the previous site review. During the review, it was noted that a new robotics club had been added. The site monitor checked CNP Web and noted that it had already been updated. Site monitors should go over their findings with the site contact person at the end of every review. Sign and date each review and make sure that the lead site staff member signs and date the form as well. The goal of the site monitoring is to ensure that problems can be caught and fixed early in the school year so all sites can remain in compliance with CACFP requirements. So in this training, we learned that a multi-site sponsor is a sponsor with more than one CACFP approved site. We learned that multi-site sponsors have additional requirements, of which the most time-consuming is site monitoring. Site monitoring will require having a site monitor who can monitor each site using NSLP monitoring requirements. Resources for multi-site sponsors can be found on ODE CNP's webpage. The At-Risk After-School Care Handbook provides additional information for at-risk after-school sponsors. Thank you for participating in the multi-site sponsor training. If you have any questions, please contact ODE CNP. We greatly appreciate the work that you do to fuel Oregon's future.